Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome into a What If suggested by one of you, where a cash-strapped Chi-Chi makes a strong play for the money from the 24th World Martial Arts Tourney, that missed-out match that brought Mr. Saturn his initial taste of fame and glorious fortune. The heart virus done, its course fully run, and Chi-Chi is left with no source of income. Her son tries to help, but is stuck in a bind, as being a bright scholar doesn't pay much when you're 9. The day's chores done, Chi-Chi sits on her bum, staring out a window, 'cause the money's all gone. Deciding to ask her dad for some more, her eyes fall on a picture on a shelf by the door, of her and her Goku just after her proposal. Behind them she can see what's left after the disposal of the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament arena. Grabbing the paper, she quickly flips through, and there on page 8 is just what to do. The 7th of May, just 2 dozen day. If none of his friends choose to take part, she might stand a chance. She chokes up at the thought. Goku won't be there to dance. She continues to read, and soon sees that they will now include a junior grade, with pay. That's 2 slots to take, and the winnings so much, what money they'll make. They could now afford Gohan's college entry, tuition fees handled, and books aplenty. Oh, what a relief to not have to ask for more money from Dad's ill-gotten stash. She floats the idea with Gohan, and while he's hesitant to try and twist on that dial, the almost wistful look he can clearly see on his mother's bright face whenever so does she talk about tournaments past, it is not lost on him. Maybe he'll have a blast. It'll make her happy, his dad's favorite thing, and relieve money troubles they're so often having. He knows his mum feels a deep inner pain, constantly drawing on Gramps' questionable gains. But this will be hers, no, theirs, in fact, one through their own combined double impact. Gohan carries them there, and a man that they meet, a man who will make Chi-Chi white as a sheet. Her heart it does sink, for that is the guy, only on the brink, Goku beaten last time. Mr. Piccolo so massive, his power emanating, her hopes are so dashed if this man's participating. It turns out he has no interest in competing, he has no care for money, the fame is too fleeting, but he had sensed Gohan's direction, so thought he might come, to see the boy's skills, and maybe show some affection. For no training they'd done, as time spent with the boy, had an absence so conspicuous, sparring felt so ridiculous. Gohan admits that he hasn't done much, except these last weeks with his mother as such. Chi-Chi sparring with Gohan, well, she'd at least want a chance. So she trained just a bit, more for herself to advance. At this point in time, he's way out of her league. Piccolo grunts disappointment, though there's little intrigue. Gohan's always been just that little bit fragile, and with his father's recent death, it's best not to tackle. The junior division goes well enough. Goku one-punches his opponents so tough. He moves up to face a young girl in the finals, whose dad's hanging about, shouting such praise, no denials to spout. Against this young girl, the match initially has Gohan on the back foot as she moves in a twirl. He'd expected the same, but is caught quite off guard as she comes at him swinging to hit him so hard. So much so that he must end up kicking her thus, that flying he sends her quite out of the ring. As her dad cries a foul from nearby with a growl, Gohan offers a grin and his hand to pull in. He heads off to be named the first winner, while Videl just stands there, just trying to figure. This unassuming young boy who just ragdolled a toy, she had trained with her dad, she had thought him so rad, he was not on this level. He had utterly demolished his first 2 opponents, then this? What gives? It had taken just moments. The adult matches go well, though Chi-Chi can't tell. Through Killa and Jewel she carves like a tool. Then it came to the final, and she turned up that dial. He stood proudly before her, top dog at his school. He'd normally consider himself quite cool. He might normally offer a free punch from this woman, so dainty and demure. But after watching her son demolish his daughter, he's not feeling too generous. Besides, she'd done well against those buffoons, even if they were put off by facing a Wamoon. Ready for a rumble, she sends him for a tumble. His movements so slow, his punches for show. If he wanted her to see where his fist would soon be, he might as well use a pen and draw a diagram. Knocked over a 10th time, there's no arena left behind, so down he falls upon the ground, and from the crowd there's such a sound. He's lost his shot at the champion slot, and to a woman, of all things. It had to be some sort of trick, yet just like her boy, no normal kick. What else could have sent his Videl flying out of the arena to the ground as well? The announcer is not having a bit of it, though. He's seen enough fights to properly know. He announces that Chi-Chi, wife of previous victory, is now the 24th World Martial Arts Champion! With a shrill of excitement, Chi-Chi heads off to meet, with her son to collect their prizes so sweet. Then heading back home to bask in their wealth, they say their goodbyes and then fly off in stealth. But not hidden enough to go fully unnoticed by someone who had been following them so focused. After being so casually tossed out of the ring, Videl finally escaped her father's crying. She had then gone forth to seek out this youth that had sent her flying, as if like a toy. She wasn't expecting to see him airborne, aloft with his mother held tightly beneath. That big green man, intimidating he was, but flying? I mean, what? There is no film crew, no wires, it is true, no camera to be seen, no way they could fly, yet clearly they have been. Her quest to find more, this boy's hidden lore, is interrupted days later with news of attacks. They watch the TV as the reporters unseen try desperately to get their scoops for more views for their fancy news set. One by one they fall silent as each violently meets an untimely demise as they seek to fill seats. When one of the anchors asks if the champion has shown, her dad scoffs at the screen as if he had known. No way a weak woman like that would reveal how utterly useless she'd be in the real. Inside she cringes at her father's dismissal. She had seen his fear as they moved like a missile. Eventually some fighters do actually show up, while grainy Videl can clearly make out the green skin and pointy ears, without a doubt. Oh, what had he called him? Mr. Picon or Picro? Ah yes, she remembers, his name is Mr. Piccolo. Or it was, because, as if in an omen, he dies in a massive, screen-shaking explosion. She loses track of the action for a time till she spots him, the boy, he is floating, he lands next to what's left. Of his green friend there is little, he starts to pick up, when another appears. He is short, with black hair, and a blue and white jumpsuit. At least black it was there, but the camera goes fuzzy, gets knocked out of hands, now really quite bloody. Reacquiring his target, the cameraman comments, the same man still stands there, now with a blonde bonnet. A strange light does spill forth from where the man stands, so warm and so terrible, he looks oh so grand. The camera loses track of the action again as the blonde man and girl vanish as they ascend. It pans and it zooms and it pauses momentarily on the face of the boy crying at the barbarity. Videl clearly sees his tear-streaked face. The camera lingers, if only for an instant, before a crack of thunder and the end of the assistant. He lays dead on the ground, the rocks piled high. The studio flounders, seeking footage, but why? Videl isn't watching, no, not anymore. She had seen it only briefly, that spiky hair ball. Slamming into the ground a few meters from view, just a single blurred frame of blonde hair and blue suit. In the weeks that follow, the destruction spreads. From city to town, everyone ends up dead. When it reaches her home, Videl can only watch as the two teenage monsters each mark their new notch. She hides away quiet, only to see them kill off the dojo, and ultimately then they get to her dad, Hercule, in his den. He tries, he really does, but it's just not enough. Why wasn't that woman here to stop them? Why hadn't Son Gohan come to their rescue, or he hadn't survived to come and help you? After they move on, Videl sees what remains of the dojo with nothing but her backpack to don, and a small slip of paper, the sum total of which she'd learned of the reigning world champion lady? It's just some coordinates and a picture somewhere, deep in Mount Paozu. She has to get there. With nothing but memories through the ruins of home, on she heads south, seeking that dome. Some rough living later, past many a crater, she walks over a hill and her eyes take their fill of a humble wee house. Knocking on the door, she is relieved and then more. Her search now over, her elation wanes. She draws forth on her anger, on her memories of stains. And it is high, and it multiplies. This woman has been here, this whole horrible time, just doing washing and being a mother so kind, while those monsters roam the world, all life they did smother. After hearing her rant, though she struggled to sit, Chi-Chi tells her those monsters came by for a bit, for her now long-dead husband, though they knew not why, they were just following orders, from up on high. On learning that Son Goku, their primary target, was buried in the ground now, quite safe in his casket, through the wall they did send her, to the river she was thrown. Her child son Gohan dove in to save her, lest she drift still unconscious down the long river. What? Videl asked. Son Gohan's alive? Oh, yes, he is, and I hope he will thrive. Physically at least, for his losses are many, so many deaths, despite all their zenny. What of his father? He died to those monsters? Oh, Chi-Chi says, tearing up as she ponders. To an illness he fell, so unspeakably fast, no doctor could tell just how long he would last. Videl sits there in silence, and Chi-Chi speaks on to the ragged young girl about the virus all gone. Oh, Chi-Chi says, I know who you are. You're Mr. Satan's girl. Videl, is it not? He was my father, Videl says, looking off, at a picture with Chi-Chi, and a boy who she knows, and some guy with spiky hair, not the dude that was there, on the news, that she'd seen. Oh, I'm sorry, my dear, Chi-Chi says, reaching out. Having little experience of motherly love, Videl finds no resilience to this consoling dove. A visibly scraped-up Gohan walks in, and stops to stare down, wide-eyed, then a grin, at his mother gently hugging that feisty young girl that is struggling so much, in her guilt she does curl. Chi-Chi gets up and says she's about to serve dinner. Videl's welcome to stay, lest she get any thinner. After a truly amazing, sweet home-cooked meal, Chi-Chi shows Videl, too, the bathroom to peel, the weeks of hard living off bones oh so weary. Once all refreshed, so cared for and clean, Videl asks again why neither of them had been seen. It's Gohan's turn to explain. They are so very strong, even the Super Saiyan Prince did not belong. He was batted aside. He was turned into mince. Couldn't handle that ride. Super Saiyan, you say? That sounds kind of cray. Videl's left quite unsure how she can endure when the exposition's all done. Before her there sits an actual alien. The very next morning, Videl has a proposal. They may be afraid of this threat that is global, but can they please train her, at least how to fly? There has to be a way, or everyone will die. Gohan and Chi-Chi consider this well, as he had been planning on training himself. Having a partner would certainly not hurt. She'll start with the basics, but Piccolo's training must be the core basis. Chi-Chi does her best to put Videl to the test, but the girl quickly sees Gohan's many degrees. He is just leagues ahead of them both, so instead, their training regime goes by like a dream. In only 2 weeks, Videl learns the techniques. She wobbles in the air, the wind whipping her hair. Chi-Chi looks on to see she'd never truly known Ki. Beyond the vague sense, she'd always been rather dense. If this child Videl can do it so well, she'll figure it out. No, she won't pout. As the years tick on by, they fight and they fly. The rampage continues, it pulls on their sinews. A brief history of Trunks skips by in great chunks. Though Videl may be feisty, she's just not enough to push Gohan power-wise, despite being so tough. Gohan and Videl train always together. In befores and the afters, they forge a great tether. Slowly they fall to each other's embrace, this young boy and girl with a beautiful face. When Trunks joins the scene, established they've been. To Capsule Corp they move to maintain their groove. Trunks is still keen to participate, to be seen. Despite Bulma's objections, he won't follow directions. So encounters they do with oh, you know who. Gohan's training with Videl means his arm is all well. The disadvantage still present, that fateful fight still occurs. Gohan leaves her incapacitated as he goes to be lacerated. Chi-Chi tends to her there, her prenatal care. Trunks gains his Super Saiyan, Pan's birth is soon done. A distraught Videl can so clearly tell that her Gohan is gone. Now slightly heartbroken, Bulma's warnings all spoken, Videl and Chi-Chi both look to other growth. The time machine complete, Videl's keen to compete, for a berth on the boat for her and her babe. Bulma wants Trunks to go fix those punks by saving Son Goku those few years ago. Videl cradles her Pan and asks if she can take her to meet her husband so sweet. Being a touch sentimental, Bulma is slightly gentle. Videl and baby Pan can board the tin can. It is cramped, that's for sure, but they'll manage, and more. Chi-Chi too wanted to go, but she knew well too, there just wasn't room. As Trunks presses buttons and pulls lever by the dozen, and the now 4-year-old Pan giggles at the nervous man, we will say adios, this part to a close. How do you think Videl will respond to the much younger version of the man she did bond? Will she be able? Secrets under the table? Will she give in, an uncontrollable grin, as she sees him again, long before when they are destined to meet, in their match to compete? Find out next time here on What If Chi-Chi Was World Champion?